Are you a researcher or an inventor with a great idea and no clue of how to turn it into a business? Check out Eco Capital. They'll get it done. 90% of app ideas fail. If you don't want that to be you, check out Big Kitty Labs. They can help you be successful. Do you run a startup? Chances are your employees are underpaid. Give them the benefit that really matters. 614 Startups Entrepreneurs Brew. Email us today for details. Welcome to the 614 Startups Podcast, the entrepreneur's guide to launching a startup in Columbus, Ohio. 614 Startups Nation, what's up, what's up, what's up? This is Elio Harmon, founder of 614 Startups, and welcome to another episode of the 614 Startups Podcast. In studio today, one of my favorite entrepreneurs, Dr. Shari Hicks-Graham of LivSo. What's up, Doc?
Hello, I'm doing well. How about you?
All right, I'm doing very well. Now, introduction initially came from Adia Wiggins, who's one of my favorite entrepreneurs. And she was like, you have to talk to Dr. Shari. So I'm so glad that you're here.
Cool. I'm glad to be here.
All right. Now, first things first, I got to get this out of the way. Okay. I love LivSo's branding.
Thank you.
I'm a big brand enthusiast, and I think that was one of the first things that I said to you after the introduction, and I checked out your company. So you're doing a fantastic job there.
Thank you very much.
Now, we kick off every episode with a little bit of the personal. So where are you from originally?
Yeah, so originally I come from Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is where I was born, and moved here when I was about 4 to Columbus, and went to school here all throughout high school, graduated from Worthington-Kilbourne, and then left after high school, went on to undergrad at Spelman College, Atlanta.
Okay.
Had a great time there, learned a lot.
It's hard not to have a great time at Spelman.
Yeah, exactly. It was a wonderful period.
Yeah, you got to try not to have fun there.
And that would be very hard.
Right.
So learned a lot, but made a lot of great connections, friends for life. So that will be a major highlight so far. But then after that, went to the University of Pittsburgh for medical school. And completed that training, and then went on to study dermatology. So went to Massachusetts General Hospital, did an internship in internal medicine, and also did a research fellowship with the Wellman School of Photomedicine. And at that point, really fell in love with dermatology, and in particular, all the different disease states and different ways to treat them. Really love studying laser medicine, lasers, and the way they interact with the skin was really cool to me. And then did 3 years of derm training out in Los Angeles. So
okay. So was it always that you were going to get into the medical field? Did your interest get sparked somewhere along the way? When did you decide this was a direction you wanted to go in?
I would say by junior year in undergrad, I realized that medicine was really going to be the most fulfilling career for me. I come from a family of a bit of a medical tradition. My dad is an oncologist, practiced private practice for 25 years, and then went on to OSU, where he finished his career at the James. And so he really was a great inspiration, but also I have a great aunt in Cleveland who was one of the first Black women to study medicine in the 50s, and she had a wonderful career as well. So medicine was always intriguing to me, and so, when you're going through and trying to make decisions in undergrad, I just kept circling back and realized that I would be most fulfilled in a career in medicine.
All right. And, I got to ask you this, right? Because every time, like a chiropractor, I'm sure they cannot help but analyze people's postures. Do
Right.
Are you able to turn off the lens of a dermatologist? Because I would imagine that it would be pretty tough. And right now I'm sweating because I feel like you're looking at my face and doing an analysis and not talking about it.
Not at all. I do have to try hard, especially when I'm at the beach. Mm-hmm. And if I see someone with a bad mole, I have to really make that call. I have seen some people before with moles that I think I'm concerned about for like a skin cancer, and I will actually sometimes say
go
something.
over and introduce yourself?
Yeah.
Okay, so you got to tell me about what typically happens. Is it like, oh, great, I came to the beach to get analyzed? Or
yeah. Well, usually I try to be a bit I try to not to be as scary, scary about it, but I just gently introduce myself in a like a happy way, and I say, hey, I don't want to get in your business, but I am a little concerned because I actually do this sort of work for a living, and I am concerned about this thing on your leg. I just want to make sure you know about it, and maybe show your doctor when you get home, that kind of thing.
Yeah, a little friendly advice. I got you.
Yeah, and also don't want to ruin your vacation, because if they're worrywart and I bring something up that they're not like aware of, they might freak out and have a terrible vacay, and that would just be sad.
Now, everybody who listens to 614 Startups is going to now know who you are, and now they're going to come up to you while you're having dinner and ask you to look at stuff. Okay, so that's my gift to you.
And I have a real I have an answer for that too. It's a little off color, but so I won't say it. But it'll make people think twice.
Okay,
but so I don't mind really.
You go through all this medical training, and so you have a choice to make. Do you come out and start your own dermatology firm? Did you go work for somebody else? What was that journey like?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. You go through all this training, right? And in 3 years of dermatology training, there's a lot of reading, but you also get to do a lot of precepting where you're actually going to various doctors' offices, you're rotating with them, you're kind of getting to see, like, do I like academic medicine? Do I like being at a university setting? Do I enjoy research? Do I like the private practice setting? And as I mentioned, my dad was in private practice for 25 years, so that was something that I guess that was my first model in terms of how healthcare is delivered. And so I saw how he led the team, how he saw like his practice as something that needed to be managed and, that just didn't happen automatically. And so I kind of grew up with that notion that it was something of a real business, that really required a lot of care and attention. And, we took it personally. So ultimately, when I decided about probably in my third year, after I had a rotation with Dr. Williams, the person who I eventually became partners with. I had a rotation with him, and I really liked his practice. He was right here in downtown Columbus. I liked his patient population. It was very diverse, men, women, old, young, all different ethnicities and backgrounds. And it was just a very cool place. I felt very comfortable. And so he literally sent me a handwritten note when I was a third year resident and said, Dear Shari, I hear that you're moving back to Columbus. I'd like to talk to you about joining me in my practice. Sincerely, Homer, and it was like, wow, what a way to introduce a job offer to a person. It was very personal, and I found a lot of trust in that. It just felt like, wow, I can believe this guy. I didn't feel like he was looking for anything other than just a good partner, and I didn't feel like there was any ulterior motives. And you just are kind of concerned about that when you're a new physician going into a group setting. You may just not really understand what all the risks and pitfalls were, but he was extremely well regarded in the community, and so I joined his practice.
All right, and now you're in practice, and I assume hey, it's checking all the boxes for you. Was it what you expected as you started the private practice, or did you get into it and you're like, oh my God, what did I get myself into?
That's a great question. Okay, so what I will say, this was, at that time, it was about a 40-year-old practice. And so, and he had never had a partner before, which was amazing. And so I felt very honored to be the first. But, there were some things on the technological side that we had to kind of initiate. And for example, like, he really didn't have computers at that point. He wasn't doing electronic billing.
What year was this?
This was 2005.
Oh,
so
that's
it was
a problem.
So, I mean, all the records were on paper, and that wasn't so bad because the conversion at that point from paper to electronic health records was just beginning. So it was actually a really good time for me to come on. I don't think that if I had not joined, he probably wouldn't have become an electronic provider. I mean, at that point, it's a huge investment. If you're planning to retire, it's just not a great thing. But he had planned on retiring in the next 5 to 10 years. And so he said, sure, if you want to bring on electronic health records and all that kind of stuff, let's do it. And so he was fully supportive. But in part of that, I began to invest in the business initially with those updates. And so that was really good because he allowed me to really participate in developing the practice in the way that I felt it needed to go. And so really from probably year 2, we began to initiate those things, and he largely let me drive the flow. Mm-hmm. And so I was able to choose an electronic health record eventually that ended up being a good fit for us, that we have not had to change. We just have kind of gone through all of the updates, and that was a huge benefit to be able to kind of pick the right system from the beginning and stick with it. So I'd say technologically, that was the biggest thing that I wasn't quite prepared to have to invest in from the start. But I just, I didn't realize, like, wow, there could actually be an office that's not like necessarily using electronic means to bill and to take records. And that was just a big deal at that time. So
now, before we get into LivSo, which I want to spend a lot of time on, one last question about healthcare related issues.
Yeah.
So, guys are notoriously tough when it comes to making sure that we're going in, kind of the ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Yeah.
So even the best guy in the world probably goes primary care and probably needs to go to the dentist, maybe needs to go more often, but those are the two we think about.
Right.
Dermatology is like somewhere out in the ether of specialists that we need to go see.
Yeah.
So where does dermatology fall in terms of regular preventative care? Where should we put dermatology in that mix?
Yeah, well, I'd say that if an individual has a lot of moles, at any point in their life, it's probably good, even as a child, to get a baseline skin exam. And or if the patient has a strong family history of skin cancer, those are 2 reasons to just get a baseline check. And then depending on other risk factors, skin color, sun exposure history, all of those things kind of play a factor in how that person would be counseled as to how to follow up. So I would say by the time, however, if you don't really know if you have any skin issues, I'd say by the time you hit about 40, it's probably good for everyone just to have a baseline skin exam. Mm-hmm. Or if at any point you notice anything in terms of a mole or mark on the skin that is new or changing. So skin cancer is real. It's a big deal. And it kills people every year. Okay. About 10,000 Americans die every year of melanoma. And so it's really important to spread the news that everybody could potentially get a skin cancer, regardless of skin tone, ethnicity, what have you. And so I try to spread that message every single day. Mm-hmm. And if you see a mole that's new, changing, and or that meets the ABCDEs, do you know what those are?
No.
Okay, so I'll go through them. So A is asymmetry of a mole, B, border irregularity, C, color variability, D, diameter being greater than 5 millimeters at the top of a pencil eraser, or E, evolving. A mole is growing, changing, anything like that. Those are things that can be signs of melanoma. And melanoma is a skin cancer. It's the most deadly form. And, it is very dangerous, especially for young Americans.
Yeah. And I know things like, because breast cancer is such a concern,
yeah,
folks are advised, women are advised to start checking their breast
right
regularly because it's part of the program. I think what you're advising us is even if you might not have a history of an issue, or if you do have a history, you need to be super vigilant with also examining yourself as well for issues that might, be giving you signs or might lead to some other problems with your skin.
That's right.
So thank you so much for that advice,
Yeah.
Doc. Not looking forward to my colonoscopy. I will add the dermatology appointment when I turn 40.
Right. It doesn't even
to
hurt.
my list.
It doesn't even hurt. We just look.
Yeah. Okay. Got you. That's a main selling point there.
Yeah.
So practice, I assume you're kind of growing it. You're adding some technology. My first experience with the dermatologist / entrepreneur were the ladies of Proactive.
Ah, yes.
Right? So
Yes.
that was when the dermatologist kind of stepped in front of the camera and began to market skincare products,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Brilliant.
On a massive scale.
Brilliant. Yes.
And so where did you get this inspiration, or where did you find this need to go from practicing as a dermatologist to also developing a business that would sell skincare products?
Well, it really grew out of the needs that I saw in my patients. So I see a lot of patients with hair and scalp disorders, and I see a lot of women coming in with dry, itchy scalp. And unfortunately, I saw an epidemic number of women, particularly African American women, coming in with hair loss, scarring, alopecia, hair loss, and it was just devastating to them because they really did not feel comfortable coming out in anything other than a wig perhaps, or hair pieces, etc., that would cover up bald spots that unfortunately we were finding were going to be permanently bald. And so every night I would go home and just think, gosh, this is terrible. What can we do to help prevent this? And so I realized that there was just an issue about having access to products that were of high quality that would help to prevent dryness and flaking, because a lot of these patients initially would come in saying, yeah, I do have a history of dandruff. And there is some research that shows that this condition that I'm speaking of, which is called central scarring alopecia, or has a big long name, central centrifugal cicatricial alopecia, or CCCA, that condition can be associated with a prior history of dandruff or seborrheic dermatitis. So what I found was that in treating patients with textured hair for seborrheic dermatitis, oftentimes those prescription medications were so harsh that they would just dry out a naturally textured or curly hair. Mm-hmm. And so I found that there just weren't really suitable alternatives that were effective on helping to rid the scalp of dandruff, but that also were cosmetically acceptable for that hair type. So I wanted to kind of bridge that gap between what we know works on the medical side with what works cosmetically. And so that's how the idea for LivSo was born.
All right. Now, where did you get the name from?
Yeah, so LivSo kind of was an idea that came because we wanted people to be able to just live so free. You know, people felt so burdened by their hair and scalp disorders that really I just wanted to provide a way for them to feel uplifted and free to live their best life. And so that's how the concept of LivSo came to be. And then it also just happened that my husband and I have 2 kids, and their names are Olivia and Solomon. So when you put their names together, it also comes up to LivSo.
Okay. All right. I love it. And so, okay, so you get this idea there's a need.
Yeah.
You're seeing these people, you imagine, hey, it can't just be in my practice. I'm sure this is more widespread than just my patient population that I'm serving. What did the kind of research process look like before you kind of launched this business? Or did you feel that, you had a product that you could actually deliver a result so strong that it would, the flames would blaze from there and this thing would grow?
Yeah. So, I did feel like I kind of had the answer before I had the product, because I already knew what worked from a medical standpoint. I just needed to kind of make it more cosmetically acceptable for this particular hair type. Mm-hmm. So I kind of worked backwards, and I worked and learned a lot about formulation of shampoos and conditioners and kind of what the differences were and what the basic attributes were. But I didn't fool myself. I'm not a cosmetic chemist. I'm not a chemist. I'm a clinician. And so I was able to interview a lot of different formulators, a lot of different labs, and it took quite a bit of time to try to figure out who would be the best fit, because I'm just a dermatologist from Columbus, Ohio, with a big idea. But, and I'm not L'Oreal, I'm not, these big brands, but I did have a really great idea and I knew exactly what I wanted. So finally we were able to find a formulator, find a lab that was able to, develop some prototype products. And we literally went over round after round after round of iterations of each of the 3 products, the shampoo, the conditioner, and the moisturizing scalp lotion, and finally settled on one that we thought was pretty good. Of course, it had to pass the at-home test, right? And at that point, I had a daughter with a whole lot of hair. So she got her hair washed a lot. Mm. And she gave a lot of really good feedback, and, everything from the way the slip of the product, the way it made the hair feel, the way it helped the scalp. It also was helpful that we had a little bit of a lot of this issue in our family. We had a lot of dry scalp. So everybody I knew got a sample. And so I did a lot of at-home testing. And then once I found that we had a formula that was acceptable, then we actually did sponsor a clinical study, because I knew that if I was going to put my name behind it as a medical doctor, I wanted to make sure that it was A, safe, and B, effective. And so we commissioned a 12-week clinical study to make sure that it was, in fact, safe and effective. And so when we got the results back, we were pretty pleased and knew that we had to bring it to market.
All right. So there's, I'm guessing, in medicine and in product and making claims, there's a thin line between natural and like medicated, right?
Yeah.
That kind of, so where does LivSo live in between those two spectrums?
So interestingly, I definitely don't say medicated. Mm-hmm. And I also don't throw around just the name natural either. What I say is that in conversation, we say that the product is naturally derived, but we don't kind of make any claims that it's completely natural, because it's not. There are ingredients in them that we know work because, they have glycolic acid in them. They have salicylic acid in them from willow bark extract. And so, as a physician, I'm not afraid to acknowledge the kind of the beauty that can come out of science and the beauty that can come out of chemistry that we know is safe on people. And so, it's a matter of degree, and it's a matter of kind of, not overstepping one way or the other. But the FDA is very clear. This is a health and beauty aid. This is not a drug. And even though I'm a dermatologist and I'm a medical doctor, I can't make claims that this cures or prevents disease. But what it can do is it can help with dry, itchy scalp. Mm-hmm. And it respects the natural quality of textured hair.
I understand.
Yeah.
And so it sounds as if it's a product that fosters a healthy environment for your scalp to be healthy, and as a result, good things are going to happen, right?
Exactly.
A healthy scalp promotes a lot of good benefits.
Yeah.
And it may address some of the issues that folks have around, skin conditions.
That's precisely it.
All right. And so you go through the clinical trials. You're happy.
Yeah.
And now you have to go to market. What was that process like for you?
Yeah, so it was pretty exciting because I have always enjoyed just watching marketing happen. I've always been inspired by products. I mean, I remember being a kid going to the drugstore and like wanting to try every single acne wash there was. And so certainly watching the Women of Proactive, that was inspirational. But truly, we wanted to focus in on these people who were dealing with this dry, itchy scalp issue. So we literally went to the fundamental qualities and characteristics of that audience. And we said, who are these people? What kinds of lives do they live? What sorts of things are going to speak to them? What kind of colors? What kinds of, things to describe what they're about to experience will they respond to? And we really wanted something to be beautiful about the brand. We wanted it to be accessible. We wanted it to feel elevated, though. We wanted it to be clean. We wanted it to be inspirational and aspirational. And because we feel like, everyone deserves to have a quality product at a fair price. And that's what we really wanted to convey. And we also believe that value is very important to people, especially when you're trying to deliver healthcare. And one of the main issues around this problem is that people often kind of come in and out of health insurance. And so sometimes I might write them for a fantastic prescription that helps, but then if they lose their insurance or if they're between jobs, they don't have access to it anymore. Mm-hmm. So LivSo is something that we hope people will always be able to have access to because it's at a fair price, but they'll want to use it no matter what, because it works.
All right. And distribution channels. So people are getting it online, in store. What channels are you using?
So primarily we're online. So we sell on our website at livso.com. And we also do sell retail at Amazon. And so those are our two primary channels, but we also retail at some beauty supply stores and salons here in Columbus. So we're at the Ambushed Salon in Gahanna. We're also at Willis Beauty Supply in Columbus. They have 2 locations, and also at Miss Melanin Salon. And then there are, of course, people are able to purchase it at Downtown Dermatology. And then it's also available at some salons around the country, on the West Coast, in Chicago, in New York City, and then also in some dermatology offices, some down south and some also in the Northeast.
All right, so let's talk Black people issues.
All right.
So there's this craze right now. Let me not call it a craze. There's a return to the natural.
Right.
Not saying that these issues didn't exist when so many people weren't returning to their natural hair, people, Black people in general. But my wife has baby, I'm not throwing you under the bus. I love you. She has products under the sink because there are so many companies that are now kind of a part of this movement of returning back to natural hair.
Right.
So for, let's say, a woman out there who hasn't started that journey and she's about to begin, and like you said, your product is addressing dry, itchy scalp when people are growing their natural hair.
Right.
Is there a process by which somebody could return to the natural and maybe using your products prevent that from happening rather than do it reactively?
Yeah, definitely. So one great thing about the natural hair movement is that it really often can help the scalp to return to a more healthy state. And so a lot of people tell me that when they were relaxing their hair, straightening it chemically, their dandruff was actually worse. So for many people, when they go back to wearing it natural, it improves, but not all the way. So absolutely, there's a place for LivSo in the natural hair movement. It works very well whether you're relaxed or natural, but certainly if you're natural, it will help to impart extra moisture to the scalp. It's soothing. The conditioner is very good for detangling, which is important, and the lotion can be used in between shampoos. Generally, we recommend shampooing weekly. And one of the issues in the natural hair movement is, the concept about co-washing, because co-washing is a way to basically condition the hair when you re-wet it, but not necessarily shampoo it in the traditional sense where you're using lather. You're using more of like a conditioner rinse to kind of reset the hairstyle and to make it shiny and conditioned. But I find that over time, the co-washes can sometimes leave a buildup. And so LivSo is a great way to kind of do a nice cleansing without it stripping the hair. And so I think that's a perfect place. Even if a person does not have dry, itchy scalp or dandruff, it's a really good way to use the product effectively in the midst of your natural routine.
Gotcha. Ultimately, what do you want the impact of your company to be? What's your long-term vision for LivSo?
We want LivSo to be the gold standard for dry, itchy scalp care for people with textured hair.
Okay. I like it. Short and sweet. Now, what would you like your personal impact to be?
Oh, wow. I want to be a source of information, and I want to serve as someone who brought something new to this space, something that really met a need, that just didn't do another Me Too, but that came up with something new to solve a problem, and that helped people.
All right. And if you could go back to that Spelman, Shari, and give her any... Oh, you close your eyes like you don't even want to... No flashbacks from that time?
It's all good.
What advice... I mean, you've learned a lot along this journey. What advice... One piece of advice you'd give yourself that you think would matter?
Yeah, just have confidence. Just be you. Nobody else can be a better you. And just do it.
Great. And, a lot of times trying a new product is an issue for people. So they might see something, they might follow your channel, but to pull the trigger and actually purchase. Yeah. Sometimes there's a little bit of, people have their products. I like it. I like the brand, whatever. Right. But I think you've got an ingenious way of getting the toe in the pool, and you brought us some samples. So if folks are a little bit hesitant, but they still want to try it, absolutely. What's your solution for that?
Please visit livso.com. Sign up to receive a sample. We have $2 samples. We send them in the mail. They come very secure, and you can try it out for yourself before you commit.
Yeah, and it's gorgeous. And
we
it's
think
packaged
you'll like it.
Really, yeah. Just the packaging alone has me sold. So, Dr. Shari, thank you so much for being on the show. I do have to give my one takeaway every time I do an episode. And for me, it's if you see a need, solve that need. You saw a need in your business, you took the big leap of faith, and now you're impacting people and changing lives. 614 Startups Nation, thank you so much for joining me on another episode. Peace. Thank you so much for joining us on the 614 Startups Podcast. My name is Elio Harmon. Episodes of the podcast roll out every week at www.614startups.com and on iTunes. Don't forget, follow us on IG and Facebook at 614 Startups. Peace.